Hi, my name is Andrew Zuboki. I'm the lead game designer here on Grey Goo from Petroglyph.
Now tell us a little bit about Grey Goo. What's it all about?
So Grey Goo is a dive back to the core of RTS. Petroglyph got together with Greybox to codes and really kind of delve back to where did RTS come from, right? The RTS genre was born about 22 decades ago, but with Command and Conquer, Dune 2, as well as a bunch of other games over the last 20 years. And we really wanted to go back to that core RTS and develop a great, fun core game. RTS as a genre has kind of really been built on three main pillars. You have this idea of base building, economic management, and strategic combat. And over the last 20 years, it's really kind of out of balance. And we really wanted to bring it back and have a great old time doing it. So when we set out to make Grey Goo, we said, hey, let's take all these lessons we've learned over the last 20 years and really bring that balance back and really design three races that you could really come together with and say, hey, these races really support the player's play style. When you look at players as a whole for the genre, you have a lot of players who say, hey, I'm a base builder, I'm a turtler, I'm a really aggressive player. And we wanted each of those players to find something in Grey Goo as a race that they love to play.
Now, can you give us a rundown of each faction?
Sure thing. With each of those factions, we said, there's that really hyper-aggressive race. Well, for that is really what the namesake of the game is, which is the Grey Goo. And it's this race that actually is completely structure independent, and you actually use the goo itself as a resource that you're going to be going around the map, creating units, destroying enemies by either swallowing them up or creating much more specialized units that will definitely destroy enemies in a very spectacular way. Being really aggressive, going on after your base, not letting your opponents have these little outposts across the map. The other end of that spectrum, we have the humans. Now, humans have really developed to this level of high technology where they're almost to that level of magical nature. And as a result, they build these big fortresses all in one location. So if you're a base builder and you really like building bases, you're going to love the humans. They're all about structuring these buildings that fit together like a puzzle piece and building very defensive units and playing from a very defensive aspect of the game. Then we have our beta race. The beta, those are pretty much the in-between of that entire spectrum. They like to either be very defensive and play very fortressy, or they can actually be very aggressive and maybe even proxy on an opponent by building bases just outside of your own base's walls. And their units are very much more mechanical, very steam, gas power driven, and they like to bring that gunpowder firepower to bear. They're also very modular, so they really believe on function over form.
Now, can you explain some of the technology behind the races, what kind of specialties they do?
Sure thing. So an example for the beta is by being modular, they have this idea that they drop down these power hubs, they take the additional structures and they combine them together to create very unique facilities. So you might start off with a power hub that has 4 connectors, attach a factory to it that produces some of your base units, and then choose different technology buildings to attach to that facility to increase the diversity of the units that factory can produce. At the same time, they can drop that anywhere. So like I said, you can proxy it outside of another's base, you can tuck it away in a corner and defend it. But that modularity continues not just with their base building, but also to their own defenses. So when they go and they build walls and they build their fortresses, they can actually then customize their wall turrets by taking units and jumping them up onto the wall and socketing them in and customizing it to what they need to be. The humans themselves, they're actually more about saying, hey, since we're building that solid one fortress, we're all about teleporting structures around. They know that when they start off, they're going to keep everything really close, really tight, put turrets down for defenses and protect what they got. But then once they're able to push out, they can actually then extend themselves out with their conduit buildings and create almost little extension cords and push themselves out with their walls and create more of an open space. And then they're able to teleport their buildings around and restructure it. Going along with that, some of their defensive turrets, they actually have a stealth detection type of turret where it hides what the player has last seen. So when a player comes in and scouts a human base, he sees their structure and their layout. But then as soon as that player leaves, the human player can then restructure all of his base and move his buildings all the way around and mask over what that player might have last seen. So they don't necessarily know what their base looks like. So every time you approach a human base, you might be coming against a different layout. The goo is all about that immediate reflexibility and actual mobility of the game. So when you see a goo unit coming around, a player might be leading you in and saying, okay, well, let's see what your army is composed of, and he can then adapt immediately and say, okay, I'm going to produce artillery to deal with your mass large ball of death that you're bringing, or okay, I'm going to end up bringing scouts so I can see where you're hiding all these other units, or oh, you're coming at me with air. Well, I'm going to just all of a sudden immediately adapt into air units based on what he sees as far as your opponent's army.